Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the main components of a PhD thesis. All right. So there are seven common parts. Introductions, where you provide background information, your objectives, purposes, and research questions, and so on. And then literature review, where you inform the readers or the thesis examiner that relevant and important papers are cited, reviewed, and critiqued. The point is you're trying to make your arguments in the literature review about what you are trying to investigate. At the third section, theoretical frameworks, you discuss the theoretical basis, like the theories, concepts that serve as the main frameworks that you will utilize to investigate the phenomena in your study. And the methods, the way that you carry out data collections and analysis to achieve the findings, the finding which is presented in the next chapter. And then we have the discussion where you discuss the values of the findings and then cross-check it with previous literature. And finally, the conclusions where you provide a summary of the findings, some key take-home messages and implications possible. All right, let's go into more details. For chapter 1, introduction, um, it is important to talk about the background or the issue that motivate you to investigate the phenomenon that you are trying to investigate. And then you should also talk about the context. Normally, the contrary that and relevant policies or anything that relate to the phenomenon. And then you would also need a section to talk about the gaps, the objectives, and the research questions that you plan to address in your study. Um, Also, you may consider presenting the significance of your study as a separate sections or included in the previous section as well. As the name indicated, significance of the study, you need to talk about why, in what way your study can contribute to the literature or to support um, the practice in the field that you are trying to conduct the research. And the final section is normally dedicated to discuss the organization of a thesis, like which chapter, how many chapters there are, which chapter, the main focus of each chapter. All right. The second chapter is a literature review. Well, when I say the second chapter, it it can be extended to different chapters as long as in each chapter the researcher or the PhD student will start with a purpose. That means you have the central thesis, the central argument that you want to make in that chapter, and then its subsections featuring more detailed supportive arguments and evidence from the literature. So you can provide evidence by reviewing or critique um, literature, relevant ones that can help you to build your argument. Again, I want to emphasize that um, the literature review is not only about presenting what you have read, but it's also about establishing a thesis with supportive arguments and evidence that is related to your research phenomenon. All right. In chapter 3, well, there can be many other chapter before you come to chapter 3. All right. So, but anyway, we'll have a chapter called theoretical frameworks where you can present it in a simple structured literature review, but the focus here is that you talk about the concepts or the theories that related to your phenomenon is to help to conceptualize your phenomenon, help you to establish the framework that you're going to use to investigate your phenomenon. Well, this is the key theories, the key concept, the key framework that you will utilize to understand, interpret your findings. All right. And then we have a chapter called the methodology where you talk about your risk design, whether it is qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. And then you talk about your participants, how you select participants, and research site, the local contact where your participant work or study. Well, the next thing is that you talk about the data collection methods. It is extremely important that you justify why you select that specific methods instead of others. So justification is very important. And in data analysis, you want to be as clear as possible about the procedure, the steps for for you to analyze your data and reach the findings. So that was important. And also in methodology, we also talk about the validity and reliability. Um, but if you are conducting a qualitative research, then the term can be different, like trustworthiness and credibility instead of validity and reliability, which is more quantitative research. Okay. In chapter 6, it's just findings. You can present the finding in multiple chapters, presenting the results and themes that address your research question. And then in the discussion, you can combine the discussion into the findings, or you can make a separate chapter where I think if you want, you may summarize your findings, but just very briefly. Uh, the whole point is to focus on the values of your finding, the contributions of your findings, like how your findings help to expand the field, to advance the field forward. Also, it is very important that you cross-examine your findings against previous literature because it's helped integrate your finding into the literature so the reader know that um, how your research has contributed to the field overall. Is there anything new and so on? It also shed light on validity and reliability as well. And finally, we have a chapter on conclusion where you present a summary of arguments you made, which is a short one, and then some take-home messages, very important messages you want the reader to take home, to remember, and the implication. So here a self checklist that is important when we write a PhD thesis. We want to make sure that our research aims are clear. We want to make sure that relevant and important literature is reviewed and or critique, and also the theoretical bases are sound, the data collection appropriately justified, and then the ethical consideration are addressed. The next, we want to make sure that we have present evidence for the validity and reliability, which should be convincing, and then we expect that the findings are effectively presented and cross-referenced against previous literature, and then the values and the contribution of your findings are discussed. And finally, you want to make sure that you have included a conclusion section with summary and take-home messages. All right, so hopefully the presentations has helped you to grasp a better idea of what are the components of a PhD thesis. And thank you for your watching.